Welcome to PianoInspires podcast, celebrating pianists, teachers, and innovators as they share their inspiring stories about the transformative power of music.
Are you passionate about piano and keyboard education? Then mark your calendars for an event that's set to elevate your teaching skills to new heights. The National Conference for Keyboard Pedagogy is back, and it's bigger and better than ever. Join us for our online conference on June 7 and 8, 2025, and our in-person conference, July 23 to 26, 2025, in Lombard, Illinois, for an unforgettable gathering of educators, performers, and industry experts. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this conference offers something for everyone. Dive into workshops led by renowned instructors, discover cutting-edge teaching techniques, and connect with like-minded individuals who share your love for music education. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to learn, grow, and be inspired. For more information, visit nckp2025.com today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Claiborne, and I serve as Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at the Francis Clark Center. And today, I have the honor of interviewing Dr. Karen Walwyn. Dr. Walwyn is a concert pianist, composer, recording artist, and Florence Prize Scholar, and is the first African-American female pianist composer to receive the International Steinway Artist Award. She's been described by Joshua Barone from the New York Times as warmly expressive Karen Walwyn. As a champion of Florence Prize, Walwyn began her journey with Florence Prize Concerto when she was invited to perform and record the world premiere of the Concerto in One Movement with the new Black Music Repertory Ensemble by the Center of Black Music Research. Walwyn's April 9th, 2002 release of her solo piano works by Florence Prize received 5 stars from Colin Clark from Fanfare, who wrote, "Walwyn seems perfectly attuned to Price's mode of utterance." Florence Prize piano music includes a number of world premieres. Another 5-star review says, "This is a marvelous release and one that I'll keep on my active listening stack for some time to come." Dr. Walwyn recently joined the faculty of Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, as professor of piano. So I just want to say that I am so honored. First, so honored to be chosen to interview you. So I'm really excited for the rest of the world to know your journey. I think many of us know the importance of the scholarship that you have done with Florence Prize, and not just the importance of the scholarship, but whenever I say Florence Prize's name, I have to say your name as well as being one of the the first forefront before it was popular to have all of this scholarship done.
True.
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm going to come back to that. But I am very curious as to talking about your early years.
Sure.
Your early years of music. And specifically in your childhood, how would you say music had an impact, or what role did music play from the very beginning as a child?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you very much, Leah, for inviting me. It's quite an honor to have this moment with you, and to share in the knowledge, gaining more knowledge of music and where we fit inside of society with our work. Thank you very much.
Of course.
But I was probably around 2 or 3 when my grandmother noted of something that I was doing at the piano. I don't know what, but my mom told me when my grandmother saw me playing or doodling, she said she needs piano lessons.
Wow.
And so it happened that my father actually had some piano lessons when he was a young boy.
Okay.
He grew up in Nevis in the West Indies. And so he didn't have professional piano lessons, but he was able to get me started. I started with John Thompson's Little Fingers, And then went on to the first grade and second grade. And I think after that, I think we were getting into some arguments about certain things. Apparently, and I ended up with a new piano teacher.
Oh, okay, got it. Understood.
So,
Understood.
but it's interesting. I think music was inside of my blood from both sides, because fairly recently I found my grandmother's music books,
Mm.
and she apparently was an organist or a keyboardist.
Wow.
And so it was quite stunning to see her name,
Right.
which was, signed in all of the very intricate works.
Right.
And so she knew what she was looking at when she said she needs piano lessons.
For sure.
Yeah.
But you weren't aware of that.
I wasn't aware of
Before.
that until just maybe 2 years ago.
Wow. That's very special.
Yeah, it was very special to find. But growing up, I was lucky that my father happened to have albums that he would play every Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Bach,
Mm.
Beethoven, Chopin, and then I was listening to this music as if it was just a normal day.
Interesting.
And when it came time for me to start wanting to learn, the repertoire that I was listening to, even
Mhm.
though my fingers weren't ready, at a very young age, I was saying, well, I want to learn the Polonaise, I want to learn the Ballade, I wanted to learn the Prokofiev Seventh Sonata,
As a young kid.
Yeah.
Sign me up for Prokofiev 7, please. What?
I had no idea that there was something called technique.
That's incredible to me. You know, what's striking to me is, in the same way, I mean, there was a lot of music in my household growing up as a
Mhm.
child, but
Mhm.
it's interesting. We don't know that's your normal. That was your
Yeah.
normal, to have Bach and Beethoven
Mhm.
and Mozart and Brahms just
Mhm.
playing, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
that's what you were accustomed to.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
amazing. Can you talk about that transition to your first teacher? You started with your dad because your grandmother
Yeah.
said she needs
Right.
lessons. So
Right.
can you talk a little bit about your first teacher?
I think my first teacher's name was Mr. Centora.
Okay, Mr.
And
Centora.
and we were in New York.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, I remember only two things. One was he used to tell me to do something with my fingers, which was pick the finger up and hit the keys.
Okay.
And I thought then that seemed weird. To be honest. But
Mhm.
but then the second thing I remembered that he said, if you come here and you tell me what your father told you to do, then we're not going to have any more lessons. So either we do it my way. And so apparently I would go home and tell my father, well, Mr. Centora told me to do da 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 da. And so, those kinds of, back and forth exchanges, at least my father was engaged. And
Right.
and
Right.
so-
Right. Of course.
So I think eventually what happened was we moved to a lady named Mrs. Taylor who was down the street,
Mhm.
and she was getting ready to get me into the Juilliard prep program.
Wow. Okay.
And that was when I was around 10. And so I say, unfortunately for me,
Mm-hmm.
we moved to the Virgin Islands, to St. Croix.
Interesting.
So I didn't get a chance to pursue,
Okay.
the Juilliard prep program. And I didn't get to have piano lessons for quite some time.
Wow.
So fifth grade, sixth grade. After sixth grade, we were in St. Croix. So seventh grade, eighth grade, I was pretty much on my own. I was playing whatever music that I could find. Moved back to the States in ninth grade. And then I went through a series of teachers until I could find a teacher that actually was responding to my questions. And so that teacher was Miss Peggy Irwin.
Okay.
I was approximately 17, and I was you heard the last thing that I said was, I'm trying to look at Prokofiev sonatas, but I really didn't have any formal lessons from Mrs. Taylor until 15, 16 years old. And so suddenly I'm doing the Rachmaninoff Concerto, number 2, and entered the competition.
I forgot we're still there's videos because my face is I have so many questions.
So I'm doing the Rachmaninoff Concerto with Mrs. Irwin, and I'm getting ready to enter a competition, and she taught me one thing that was very special. She taught me about how to memorize backwards, which is a great technique.
Yes.
But unfortunately, she also was telling me to lift my fingers up really high and strike the keys. I'm thinking that just doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
So funny, I would meet my next piano teacher at Broward Community College because she was my accompanist for the Rachmaninoff Concerto
Okay.
for the competition.
Okay.
And she said to me, "Do you know how to create a musical phrase?" Like, no, what is that? And so when she started showing me, what that means, she was, by the way, from Jamaica.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh my gosh, well, I need to study with you." And just like that,
Wow.
I switched.
Okay.
And I won the competition. And we worked together for 2 years because I ended up going to Broward Community College for the first 2 years of my bachelor's degree.
Nice.
And then I went on to University of Miami for my undergrad, to finish my undergrad.
Okay.
And to do my master's. And so at that time, I was studying with Dr. J.B. Floyd. And
Wow.
he was he became my primary teacher and is the teacher that is kind of like my surrogate father as well. And so we're still in touch. He's 94 years old and we still talk. He still gives me advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to come back to him in just a moment, but there are many things that you've said that I know are your norm that is not normal for the rest of us. So I need to connect a couple of dots, which are largely, I feel, as pianists. I think we all think that we started too late. And when I say too late, I'm thinking sometimes even 6 or 7 years old feels late to most people who have started at 3 years old, 4 years old,
and had that kind of
consistent training. Probably with one teacher taking them through
all the way
through high school, at least preparing them for college.
I did not have that.
You did not have that.
Not at all.
But beyond that, there are large holes of years where it seems like you are figuring things out yourself.
Absolutely.
And only because I know you, I understand that you actually started doing that at a very, very young age.
Yes.
Where you are essentially becoming your own teacher.
Yes.
Figuring this out and this all out on your own.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm reminded of that. Somewhere around the age of 14, I was studying with another teacher who I remember him saying, "If you're going to don't use my name because I don't want to be associated with you. If you're going to play these pieces on this concert." And the pieces were, I literally had jumped from, John Thompson's to the Chopin Ballade. And
Karen, how? What is happening?
And the Polonaise and he said, "Don't mention my name." I said, "Okay, but I'm still going to play the concert." So then as we continued to work, I found that he really wasn't answering any of the questions that I had. And one of the biggest questions was, how do I successfully memorize a piece? Because when I played the Prokofiev, the last 2 pages of that first movement, I went blank.
Okay.
I knew nothing. I couldn't, I have perfect pitch, but I couldn't hang on to anything. And so what I realized I was missing was, I didn't know it then, but I was missing theoretical analysis.
Sure.
I was missing techniques on how to practice successfully.
Okay.
I was missing techniques on how to memorize successfully.
Okay.
And I was missing conversations on what is this piece about.
Right.
I didn't have any of that.
Right.
I knew something was missing. So I
off.
finally said to my father, I'm not learning anything. I've been coming here for 2 years. I don't feel like I'm learning anything. And so that's when we, did a little search, and I
Right.
eventually would find, as I mentioned, Miss Peggy Arwin.
Right. It seems to me, whenever I talk to individuals about that first teacher, for one, you had a lot of different teachers.
Yeah, traveling back and forth.
Right.
And that was disruptive for the purpose of the training of a pianist.
However, I understand how it forced you had to do a lot of work on your own.
Forced me to have to become my own
teacher and advocate.
Yeah.
Because I hear a lot of advocacy in what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what I also hear is your tone switched when you talked about your teacher in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know did you say surrogate dad?
He's like because
can you talk a little bit more about that relationship?
What he did what I think used to happen back in the old days. One of my teachers told me that is the teacher would have a student come and spend 5-6 hours 3-4 days a week. And Dr. Floyd had me come in on a Monday, and he put me at the last of his hour of his schedule, and we'd work for 2 hours. And then he said, well, okay, well, then why don't you come in on Wednesday? Okay, I'll come back. And I got everything done that he had assigned me to do, and there Wednesday ready to go again. And so he said, okay, well, 3 or 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, why don't you come back on Friday? And so then we were having lessons 3 times, maybe sometimes 4 o'clock, at his home. His wife was a pianist, and sometimes she would, offer lessons as well. And so it was like, it felt like family.
Right. It
felt like family.
That's really beautiful.
And
that's really beautiful.
Because I could call him and ask questions. We started talking about other things other than just music. We talked about life. We talked about career.
Right.
I learned a lot about his career. He helped me understand what is it to be a musician.
Okay. So what path can we help connect the dots a little bit with? That was Miami. When did you start learning about Florence Price?
So
and getting into the music and the recording with Center Black Music Research, how can you lead us to that?
Of course.
To that part.
So University of Miami was essentially me catching up where others who had that 10, 12 years of the professional lessons, I was catching up.
Did you feel like you were behind?
Well, yes. But at the same time, while I was at Miami, I also was accepted to get into the next round for the Chopin national competition. And so in one respect, I felt like I got to catch up. But somehow I was at least able to get to that round where I could play. Now, I played well, but as the Rosalind Turek said, I was just green. Didn't have my own personality in my performance.
Okay.
And that would make absolute sense.
Okay.
Because I was learning pieces the night before and running on the stage and playing the next day. So no, there's not a time for them to have settled or anything of that nature. But when I went to University of Michigan, then I met Dr. Willis Patterson. So
yes. So Karen and I both we would both agree Dr. Willis Patterson is our mentor.
Yes.
Biggest advocate, person you call.
Yes.
Sit down.
Yes.
Just the most beautiful person, I believe, in our industry. Can you, for those who do not know Dr. Willis Patterson, could you give a quick synopsis of Dr. Patterson?
So when I first met him, I met him actually because he did a black symposium, black music symposium in 1985.
Okay.
And so I was a master's student still at University of Miami when I got to go to the symposium.
Okay.
I got to go as a student participant.
Nice.
And while I was there, I actually played, and the chair of the piano department heard me play. And he said, you need to come here for your doctoral degree. And so moving forward, I did receive a full scholarship to enter University of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, I was the accompanist for Our Own Thing chorale with Dean Patterson.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so for years,
Wow.
we get in the car and ride over to the rehearsals, and
Yeah.
so we're chit-chatting
At
then.
Jefferson Church.
And and but one day he saw me in the hall and he said, Karen, do you know any pieces by any African American composers?
Ooh.
And I want to slip into under the floor because I felt so guilty.
Wow.
I feel like I'm supposed to have known, but
Right.
but none of my previous teachers
Right.
were on that track. Because
Wow.
usually the typical repertoire for competition is A, B, and C, but not including African American literature. So
Right.
no.
Right.
So he said, come here. And so we went into his office and he said, look around. And so this entire wall full of music and books and scores and records. And so I just would go in there. He gave me the key so I can go in there and just, study everything that was in his room.
Wow.
And so I spent years,
Mm-hmm.
I think, in his room,
That's incredible.
essentially just going through stuff. And that's when I said, why I've got to do something here. And then I came across Althea Waite's album with I think that's the album that had the Florence Price recording on it, and many other composers. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do one of my doctoral lecture recitals on a composer. And so I chose Adolphus Hailstork.
Okay.
And we got to have a lot of time interviewing him and learning his music because, of course, I was chosen to do his chamber work, a trio for piano, violin, and cello.
Okay.
And the last movement was an 11/8. And so I'm like, look. How am I supposed to count? It's like an allegro. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And he said, no. I said, why did you make this so hard anyway? And so that's how we clicked instantly.
Sure.
So it's like, no, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. I was like, oh,
Got it.
okay. All right, I understand it. So, we started developing a beautiful friendship. And then once I completed my lecture recital, his work, the Piano Sonata, which is hefty.
Putting it lightly. Yes. Yes.
I got that onto that was in one of my lecture recitals. And so then later on, after I finished my degree, I was lucky to become on tenure track inside of the dance department, where I spent my 2 years accompanying ballet and doing some of the music teaching subjects there.
Okay.
And so it was then that I won over $55,000 in grant money to record the 2 albums.
Beautiful.
Dark Fires.
Okay.
And so, of course, Adolphus Hailstork was on that, Alvin Singleton, Tanya Leon, Ellis Marcellus, and David Baker. The list goes on. And so that's all because Dean Patterson came up to me and said, come here.
Right. I've gotten that come here before, but it wasn't in that capacity. I also, it's amazing to me because you're saying, I mean, you knew Hailstork.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you know Baker as well?
Yes,
I mean,
I had a
because
chance to.
these are incredible names that, I mean, for
Mhm.
me, it's just, I think for me and for everyone else, it's starstruck, right? We can only read about
Mhm,
these
mhm, mhm.
incredible Black composers who have their own community, right? But
Mhm.
we didn't have access
Right,
to them.
right,
Most aren't even alive,
right.
right,
And
anymore. And you were
so
there.
I made a choice to work with living
Wow.
composers because I knew I could always come back. And so that's why I did not start with Florence Price back
Interesting.
then. I went straight to who's living right now so I can interview them, I can understand what they're looking for, I can understand their characteristics and make sure that I'm trying to find them in the performances before I record.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And that's a very smart way of your scholarship.
Jeffrey
Yeah.
Mumford, for example, I had a chance to interview him before recording his work. And, I learned that his inspiration comes from clouds, as opposed to Adolphus Hailstork, whose inspirations come from the bells in the cathedral.
Wow. Okay.
And
When did you make that decision to go back
to Florence
to Florence
Price?
Price?
Because I got a phone call.
Okay. Tell me about this phone call.
From the Center of Black Music Research.
Mhm.
And so Morris Phibbs asked me in 2010 if I would like to do the recording of Florence Price, the concerto, because what had happened, the discovery of the music was in 2009 by the Gatwoods at the Florence Price's abandoned home.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this time, the symphony was going to be recorded, premiered, and then so would be the concerto.
Okay.
So Trevor Weston, composer,
Right.
had to orchestrate the orchestra parts because those were not available, but the actual handwritten score of the piano part was available.
Okay.
And so I was able to get the score about 6 weeks before the recording.
Okay. And
I learned it, and that was a short 6 weeks.
Profound. 6 weeks. Profound.
And so we did the recording. We had actually hour and a half to record it that evening, and I was very happy. And then I got the phone call that said, so unfortunately, the piano tuning was not quite up to par. And next morning at 9 a.m., and for 30 minutes, I was going to record this again.
Okay.
And you might know me well enough to know that 9 a.m. and I don't
see those in the same sentence. But okay. Got it.
That's the recording that's there.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And then I'm assuming that's Florence Price. I guess what my question is, hope it's not too obvious, but why Price?
That was the baby of Morris Phibbs.
Okay.
Yes, that was his project.
Okay.
Yeah.
But why did you specifically?
Why did I get the phone call?
No. I know why you got the phone call. I wouldn't imagine anyone else getting that phone call. Not at all. What I'm saying is, what struck me is that you said, which I'm going to need to meditate on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You said, I purposely chose living composers
right.
first because I knew I could go back.
I don't know.
Point. But
that's interesting. I don't know why.
Huh.
Okay. They say don't say things unless you mean it. So
true. Okay.
Honestly,
because you've done so many premieres of Price.
And so after that concerto performance, after the recording, my next invitation came from James Greason at University of Arkansas.
I see what you're saying.
And so then he said, would you like to learn some new pieces that had just been edited,
Sure.
and they would go in the documentary.
Right. So it
Yeah.
almost seems that with that first concerto
Yes.
project,
Yeah.
and then you started getting more calls,
Mm-hmm.
more
Mm-hmm.
films,
Mm-hmm.
interviews,
Mm-hmm.
grants
Mm-hmm.
for specifically Price.
That's right.
So it's almost as if
And
Price chose you or the industry chose you or
in a sense, because with each performance, then it forces me to have to go and research more and learn more.
Mm.
And so that's why I was very excited to have the opportunity to record the concerto again with the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra in 2021.
Okay.
And we did that recording with the newly found Florence Price's pinned score.
Right. Right.
So that was very exciting.
I think I don't want to make light of this, but a lot of teachers,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of teachers will be listening to
Mhm.
this, right?
Mhm.
A lot of
Mhm.
teachers and students.
Mm-hmm.
And what you said, which may be small to you, but I think is huge and needs to be amplified, is that you said, with every opportunity, it gave me, with every ask, it gave the opportunity to research more,
Absolutely.
right?
That's right.
And I just wish can you just maybe talk a little bit more about
Of
that,
course.
especially if someone has asked, can you play this
Mhm.
piece by a composer they never
Mhm.
heard of?
Mhm.
It's not just the performance.
No, because when I had played it, that's why I said, I had 6 weeks to learn the notes.
Okay.
The notes
The
of the concerto. But
The
in
starting point.
That's right. In 2016, I don't remember which came first, but I think the recording came first from James Greason,
Okay.
and then I wanted to go. Something said, "Well, go to Little Rock."
Wow.
So I got in my car and I drove.
Oh my goodness, Karen, cannot with you.
I got in my car and I drove to Little Rock.
Of course you did.
And I called the mayor of North Little Rock. I met with that mayor
Of course you did.
to talk to and let them know about Florence Price. And I went over to Fayetteville. I met with that mayor to let them know about Florence Price.
Yeah.
And then I went to the university, the special collections
Right.
to what do you guys have here on Florence Price?
Mhm.
Wow, a lot of stuff.
Right.
And so I met beautiful, strong supporters of Florence Price
Mhm.
in Little Rock, names that they probably prefer that I don't say.
Sure. That's
But
fine.
they have been, this one couple has been so amazing, so supportive. I mean, every time that I go to Little Rock, they're there for me. They're there to drive me around, to take me to the homes, the locations of what once was, where Florence grew up.
Right.
To understand and stand on the ground where, for example, John Carter was lynched.
Wow.
And why is that important? It's important because when his body is hanging at the street light,
Right.
in front of the Mosaic Templars, which is the major center where African American heritage is stored and preserved.
Yeah.
And the building adjacent to it is the law office of where Florence Price's husband's practice is.
Right.
That kind of tragedy, it really speaks to how Florence still was able to write her music in spite of that kind of torturous, use the word disruption, if you will. at that time when she's raising, two
Her
young
babies.
girls,
Yeah.
and to stand there and take that all in is very important to my performance, because if I don't know these things, what am I going to say?
Oof.
Just the notes on the page. Okay, those are nice notes. And the thing is, we didn't grow up listening to Florence Price, but we grew up listening to Beethoven because they're on the recordings.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands of recordings going back to when so-and-so had the opportunity to study with so-and-so, of so-and-so student, of so-and-so student,
Right.
of
Yeah.
list.
Right. You
And
take
so
great pride in that.
that's right. So for me to be able to stand there on that corner, one other very dear friend of mine, Sybil, was again just educating me on. We went to the cemetery of where Florence's father was buried.
Right.
Those are important things
Right.
to take in, so that when you go back to the music, Florence's titles, for example, Down the Southern Lane, the washerwoman, Tub. I don't think I have the title right, but all of these titles that are describing the history.
Right.
And then to come to understand that Florence Price's mother left Florence when she was 23 or 24 because she was trying to pass for white and get a better life.
Right.
What did that do to Florence? She lost her father because her father died prematurely because of during Jim Crow years, his business went down. All of that is in her music.
Wow.
And it's important to find that.
Right. I not just saying this because you're here. Not just because I consider you a friend. But you can hear that in your music.
Oh, thank you.
Really. I feel that you can hear when people understand the life of a composer. And not just some people think they did their homework because they can play the notes, right? And they stopped there, and that they played the notes of a underrepresented composer. I would even say it's becoming more normalized to even go to archives.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
But what you're describing is beyond that. That you're following the trajectory of someone's life and connecting the dots, and then connecting it within the music, which I think creates a beautiful depth, because it's, when I listen to you, it's storytelling in the music, and I just now understood when I talk to you, it's storytelling. So you took it that extra step, and to me, it's very obvious to me how your work is changing the world, changing how we think about music, especially your contribution with Price.
Thank you.
But no, thank you. I can't believe we kind of have to wrap up. I can talk to you talk to you forever, but I want to, two questions I want to, or more, two questions, but how will music shape our future? Big question.
I'd like to hope that music will help tear down the boundaries. When I compose, I try to write music that I hope stimulates the questions of how do we move forward? How do we heal? For example, I wrote a work on reflections on 9/11. I wrote a work on honoring Nelson Mandela. I wrote a work on the tragedy at Charleston's Mother Emanuel. But I'm hoping that music will help embrace our society, our rainbow society, and help find a more common goal, and that is to enjoy the gift of life that we have been given. And I think music is the easiest way when it's received.
Beautiful. That's really beautiful. I think we could wrap up with, how does piano inspire you?
Well, let's see. I don't like to practice.
Stop.
But by the time I get on the stage,
edit that out for the teaching podcast. Sorry, go ahead.
but by the time I get onto the stage, I'm happy I did practice.
Okay, that part. Yeah.
I'm happy I did practice, because then I know I know that I'm saying something that hopefully is inspiring for the audience.
I know I have absolutely been inspired by you. And I know, first, thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this. There are so many people who I know are going to continue to be learning from you, because we have another understanding of your brilliance and your contribution to the field.
You.
So thank you for what you've done. Thank you for who you are. And thank you for inspiring us to keep at it, and to do the work in the ways that you have.
You know what? I appreciate your ability to turn something from maybe from one perspective to another, and your comment of that time when I was left without a teacher was a time that perhaps started these wheels turning.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know what would have happened if I had one of those teachers, from week to week to week. This is what you do. And so there's no opportunity for me to start asking these questions.
Sure.
So that journey perhaps began because of that.
Sure. And I think we're all grateful for that. Because look where you are now. And we are the beneficiaries of it.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Thank you so much.
The Francis Clark Center is a not-for-profit educational organization that serves the advancement of piano teaching, learning, and performing. Divisions include Piano Magazine, PianoInspires Kids, Journal for Piano Research, National Conference on Keyboard Pedagogy, the New School for Music Study, Piano Education Press, International Online Teacher Education, and PianoInspires Online Community Hub. Please visit us at PianoInspires.com to learn more about our impactful work and inspiring community.